Welcome back to your story medicine. I am your host, Jumake, and today I am with my Southeast Asian Thai sister, Jayda, Auntie Jayda fuck. I already butchered your last name, but you
It's
know what? We're
okay.
going to keep recording this because this is a challenge that we have as Thai folks with people wanting to pronounce our last names correctly and butchering it.
Yes. It's a constant
And
struggle. It's very common. It's like, yeah, okay. It's part of it. It's
yeah,
part of the journey of the I.
yeah, right. For those of you who don't
Hmm.
know, my last name is Gao Sith, but the way that it's spelled does not match it. And so,
Same.
how do you pronounce your last name?
Still want to see.
Suwansi, that's 3 syllables versus like
Still
the
want to
10
see.
that's in our actual spelling. So I'm here celebrating Jayda and the reunion of that I feel our ancestors are rejoicing in. And so who is Jayda if you are new to her work? Jayda is a queer Southeast Asian sexuality and relationship educator, also known as sex positive Asian auntie. She works to liberate folks from sexual shame by creating space for authentic conversations about sexuality, relationships, identity, and healing. She is also the co producer of Don't Say Sorry podcast, which centers the experience of Southeast Asian women navigating relationships, mental health, and sexuality. Pause. Did I just apologize earlier for mispronouncing your last name?
You might have, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, see, so I'm already in for some teachings. And not
So
only
say
that, but
sorry.
I know, right? Jayda and I actually met, how many years has it been now?
Oh my gosh. I feel like
Like
we started
four?
following each other on Instagram way before we actually started working together,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so I want to say like 2018,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Jayda was actually
maybe.
one of the very,
Hmm.
very first participants in my first long-term, my first group program. And I remember us sitting together across Zoom before we had even met in person, where we were casting spells on like who it is that you were calling in as your future ancestral self. And I remember you're like, I want to be known as the sex positive Asian auntie. And at that time, you were still working your nonprofit job. And
Hmm.
I was all like, yo, you are the auntie that like I prayed for. Like, let's fucking do this. And look at here you are today embodying your elder goals in the here and now. And so thank you for saying yes to this work, to this path. And I'm so excited to dig in today. So um, let's actually go back to how we used to open up all of our conversations, which is what is it that you're celebrating about yourself today?
Hmm. Today, let's see, we're in March 2023. So much has happened since the first time you and I recorded a podcast and the first time we started working together. And today I am celebrating the fact that I wrote a book since then. So I actually remember one of our first calls that we had before I joined your program and telling you I just want to write a book. I just want to write. I just want to write. I don't even know what. I don't even think necessarily I knew that it was going to be a book at the time, but I knew that I needed to let my voice out. And today I'm celebrating the fact that since then I have a book out, and we can talk about that more later. But I'm sitting in front of it right now, holding it up, and I'm just
Yes.
really, yeah, I that's what I'm celebrating today. That I have created the things that I wanted to create for the world so far, and there's still so much more to create.
Talk about legacy and the ways that we are creating things for our next generation. So, if we were to strip away the title of sex positive Asian auntie, which I fucking love, by the way, because we just make up these titles and then we embody it and then we see who responds. But how is it that you would describe your medicine and what it is you do in the world?
Hmm. Yeah. One of the reasons I actually use the title sex positive Asian auntie versus like a more technical, like I prefer it over sexuality and relationship educator is because I am trying to embody the kind of auntie or family member or like cool cousin that I needed when I was growing up. And what that means is my hope is to create spaces for people to heal their relationship with their bodies, heal their relationship with sensuality, heal their relationship around sexual shame. I also speak a lot about relationships that don't follow kind of like the toxic monogamy patterns. And so all of it, it just comes down to like how we're relating to ourselves and therefore how we're relating to other people. And I think that's really been the medicine that I've been trying to cultivate and share with the world is how do I create spaces for us to openly talk about the ways that we're relating to ourselves and the way that we're relating to others, the way that we're relating to the earth in a way that's non-judgmental. And I think that's the key part of like being the auntie that I needed growing up, someone that I felt safe enough with to share my questions and share what I was exploring without the judgment or the shame. Because I think that a lot of us who grow up as Asian femmes, there's just a lot of shame around our bodies and how we're supposed to behave in the world. And I don't feel like I had the level of like openness with like my mom, or the aunties that were around me. I didn't really grow up with like cousins around my age or anything like that. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what I try and embody these days. And when I host my workshops and do one-on-one support, that's kind of the space I'm trying to create.
And I feel like this is why you and I are just kismet siblings, sisters, because like you, being Thai American, growing up in the United States, I didn't have a big extended family. And we've talked a lot about this, how I
Yeah.
grew up in a predominantly Filipino community, and I would go to those
Yeah.
parties and be so intimidated. I'm like, damn, they got a lot of people. Everybody's asking me questions. I feel pressured.
Yes.
While,
Yes.
like, whenever I would go back to Thailand during summer vacations, um, I would learn that I was related to everybody in the village, and there
Mm,
was this romanticism of, oh, I wonder what life would have been like had I grown up with this kind of village support, only to remember my mom left the village because she wanted to live a life of independence. She didn't want to be a farmer like the rest of her siblings and our ancestors, and she chose the city life where I was born and raised. And here I currently am recording this podcast interview on a farm. I'm farm sitting right now. And ever since you left your job, I've just
mhm.
enjoyed watching you bloom and do the apocalypse training thing, teaching,
Yep.
learning about farming techniques,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just leading with curiosity. So let's dig deeper into your ancestral lineage and how you feel
Sure.
this is influencing the ways that you're showing up today.
Yeah. When I start my workshops and I introduce myself, I do talk a lot about my positionality as a Thai American and the privileges as well as nuances and lack of privilege that comes with some of those things. Privileges being the fact that I was born and raised in the United States, my passport is strong, I can travel the world, having certain experiences because of that. And at the same time, the duality of being Thai, you know, Thai is Thailand is really unique within the Southeast Asian, sphere because we're not a war-torn country the same way that our neighbors are. When you look at Vietnam, when you look at Burma, when you look at Cambodia, right? All of our like Southeast Asian fam. I say that to talk about the ways in which I've had to like reconcile what my place is in the world as a Thai American, as a Southeast Asian woman that is Thai. because although my parents immigrated here as well for financial opportunities, they didn't come here as refugees. And I think for me and a lot of how I move in the world is also trying to understand what that means. What it means to like hold simultaneous privileges and still be in this like femme body of mine that is over sexualized and fetishized and continuously shamed within our Asian culture, our Thai culture, and within American culture. And so that informs like why I do the work that I do. All of like even the ancestral lineages that I haven't explored yet within my own family lines inform why I do this work. I look at my mom and my aunts and think about the experiences that they may have had immigrating here to the United States. I look at my grandma and think about the fact that she was working in sweatshops in LA when she first got here, right? And how sewing is actually a really big part of our like cultural exchange within my lineage, but the pain and the potential trauma that also comes from that. I don't know if that directly answers your question, but I think there's a lot of these elements of like, um, yeah, being women in my family, being of Thai culture that kind of has been passed down to me. And I know that hopefully my family's been doing their own healing work, but I'm in a place of like really focusing on the healing work from a body-based and like sexual perspective. So yeah, it informs everything that I do right now for sure. And I'm taking a trip to Thailand soon, in a few weeks. And a lot of me wanting to continue to go back to Thailand is to try and learn about like what does sexual empowerment look like in Thailand? Like what are people talking about there? What does the sex education feel like? Like what are the conversations that people are having? What are the like queer theories that are happening in Thailand, not from a Western perspective, identify as queer as well. And there's a lot of conversation there around like, for me, of like this idea of needing to come out, what it means to be queer in Thailand or as a Thai person versus what it means to be queer as an American. There's a lot there to like unpack.
Yeah. And so Jayda and I were actually supposed to meet in Thailand a couple months ago.
Hmm.
Thailand was supposed to be my first destination to kick off my sabbatical. And one of my incentives of being so attached to going is because we both signed up for this Thai herbalism class with my teacher out there, Hom Prang, who is a Thai midwife, and I learned womb healing from 5 years ago, right before I started my business. That's actually what propelled me onto this path, first as a birth doula, then as a self-proclaimed life doula, supporting people through the contractions that arise when they are saying yes to a new story in their life.
Mm.
And yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so beautiful to go back after 5 years and to say yes to this journey of reconnecting with my ancestors alongside Jayda. It's going to be so lit and so romantic, and we're gonna and we were also going to be there we were going to be there during Loy Krathong, which is the
Yep.
floating lantern festival. And
We had a lot of
for
plans.
we we had a lot of plans. We both bought one-way
Yeah.
plane tickets as
Yep.
well.
Hmm. We booked our course with Hong Kong, and we were ready. We
Sana
were ready to do the
Plaza.
herbalism thing, be in the
Yeah.
jungle, like
Making content, saying our goodbyes to our friends and our families because we're like, we're not going to come back the same. We're embodying our medicine of reconnecting with our ancestors.
yeah, we truly were.
Only for me to go down first. And if you listen to my previous episodes, you'll know what happened. I had to stay behind to help out my parents. And I remember feeling so angry and resentful and feeling like I knew you were going to go regardless, but there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, like I'm letting Jayda down. But also I'm like, man, I don't want her to go to Thailand without me.
I know. I'm like, now I have to do this alone. And then,
Ugh. And then what happened?
so after you had decided, you weren't able to go anymore.
It wasn't a
Basically,
decision, by the way.
yeah,
It
right.
was
Not your decision. The universe decided for you.
the universe, our ancestors being like, stay your ass home.
Oh my
Look over
God.
your
Yes. So
elders.
what is it? 2 weeks before my flight was scheduled, I went indoor bouldering, and while bouldering, I fell and had a pretty bad accident and broke 2 bones in my ankle because of that fall. That was on September 28th. My flight was October 11th. And that pretty much put a halt on all of my plans. Yeah, my trip was supposed to be, it was a one way, so I actually didn't have any plans on coming back necessarily soon. Um, Broke my ankle and have been in recovery since. Could not walk, I couldn't walk for a few months actually. And that changed everything. I was dreaming of being in the jungle, going to the meditation center, like connecting with all the herbs that we were going to make medicines out of from our class.
Tiger
And I was
balm.
ready. I had already packed my clothes. Like I had my suitcase, like, and my vacuum seal clothing already set to go. Um, yeah. And the universe said no. The universe gave me the biggest freaking no I've ever received. I was just like, not yet, not yet. And so I needed to stay back. I needed to be still. I needed to be still. And I needed to fully receive the support of other people. And as someone who's very independent, who was very ready to go wander Thailand by herself, without her partner at the time, like nope, like without anyone, you were the only person that I was like, okay, at least we got one person around that I know, one level of comfort and safety, um, yeah, as a very independent person, I think that was like a tough pill to swallow at first. Of like, I literally cannot move. I can't get up to feed myself. I can't shower. I can't even get into a shower or a bathtub by myself. I couldn't get up to use the toilet. So the level of like from being a really independent person to complete 180 of now being a disabled person. Even ideally this disability is temporary, but going completely to being a disabled person was a bit of a shock to the system. But we embraced it. We
Yeah.
embraced the rest. I leaned completely into my community in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to dig deeper into some of the stories that were coming up for you during this involuntary sacred pause, because I feel like so much of what drives us is embodying this elder ancestral version of ourselves,
Mm,
and doing that as a way to shift the narrative of what is also possible for our younger selves and those that are inspired by our journey. Because
mm,
um, I know that for myself, when I
mm.
could no longer go back to the motherland, I'm like, damn, maybe maybe this maybe it's just not meant to be. I don't
Whew.
know, and I'm curious what came up for you, because it was like
Mhm,
those of us who were following your stories were like cheering you
mhm,
on. So what
mhm,
was the
mhm.
humbling lesson? What was a humbling lesson that the universe taught you? And yeah, what were the real stories that were coming up for you?
Oh yeah. I One of the bigger ones was definitely around receiving. And I don't feel like I'm the type of person that necessarily had a hard time receiving support and love and care prior. That's actually what keeps me going, right? That's what kept me on my journey towards Thailand, because everyone was like, you're finally doing it. I'm so excited for you. Can't wait to see like how you grow and what you share. And this is just a different level of support and receiving that I'd like never needed to this degree, right? Of like, you need to be here and you need to let people take care of you in every single way possible. And I think one of the big hard lessons was not that I was trying to run away from my problems, but there was a lot of grieving from the pandemic and from my relationships that were happening, and grieving just a lot of my identities as a sexuality educator and figuring out like what was next for me, like what else I wanted to create for the world. And so I think I wanted to run to an extent. I wanted to run into the jungle because I was really tired of the noise around, really tired of like a lot of the heaviness that was happening around. Maybe that's something that you relate to, because I, know a little bit about your situation too. And I think the universe is like, girl, you cannot run. You literally was like, you cannot run. Like, you're not gonna run for a while, actually. And one of the hardest lessons was trusting the process of, I think at the time too, there was this like, folks around me like, oh, this must be a sign of something. I'm like, that's not what I want to hear. You know what I mean? That's not like, yes, and I don't want to dismiss that this is a really traumatic experience on my body, right? It's not just a sign from the universe, and I'm going to take it as that. Very like, was it toxic spirituality stuff? And I think what I'm thankful for, and my other like realizations through this healing process is like, I have had all the tools that I need in order to heal from something this traumatic. And I think that like if I had not been already on my journey towards like listening to my body, right? Because you and I are in movement classes together. If I had not already been doing years of work of listening to the rhythms of my body, the intuition of my body, what it needs to feel safe, right? And this is the work I've done in my own sexual healing, right? Is like learning sensuality is learning to read the signals within your own body. If I had not already spent years doing that work prior to this like ankle fracture, I think I would have a much harder time telling myself, hey, you need to pause and heal. Like you need to chill. You need to be taken care of. You need to find things that do feel good, even though your body is in immense pain right now. And it was actually not that hard for me, surprisingly, to be like, okay, let's do it. Let's heal. Let's heal.
So what,
Like I wasn't as resistant, you know?
Yeah, when you were immobile, what were some of the things that you were able to do to still be tapped into your body and to feel good?
Oh my God. There was a lot. There was a lot that I had to like try and pull at. I did meditate more regularly. I did like wake up and use my Insight Timer app to meditate more regularly, just to, like check in with my body. I actually, interestingly enough, did not smoke weed during the really painful parts. I actually tried smoking a little bit to see if it would alleviate some pain that I was feeling. But what I found that like the smoking weed puts you more in your body and can actually amplify. For me, at least, it actually amplified the pressure that I was feeling in my foot and my ankle. And so I was like, "Ooh, that's not actually helping." It was kind of a weird trip, actually trying to figure that out for myself. I was like, "Okay, how can I alleviate, but also, right, not have to force myself to sit in like more discomfort than I have to, if you will." But a lot of it was listening to a lot of music, meditating, having like allowing friends to check in on me and responding back. Um, Lots of crying, lots of crying for sure. Just releasing of just and doing nothing, straight up doing nothing, and letting my mind, reminding myself that it's okay. Like you can't do anything right now. Like you literally cannot do anything. Um, and being okay with that. Very, very hard capitalist notions to unlearn, right? Of like you can't do a single fucking thing right now. Like I can't even microwave my own food
Wow.
right now. Yeah, yeah. So it was intense. Um, but I think just being as present in my body as I could. I know that one of the hardest pieces, because I was really active. I was probably the most active I've ever been in my life prior to this accident of going rock climbing. I was farming on a weekly basis. I was doing movement classes. I was also going to the gym, and so it's actually the strongest my body has ever felt. And then I lost all mobility, and or as much mobility as I was used to. And so I literally tried to do like some movement sessions in my room just with my arms, just my
Mm.
arms because I couldn't walk, and like being able trying to move my body in whatever ways I could, but it was really hard. It was really hard to find that motivation. But yeah, just trying to like I can still move the rest of my body just fine. It was just my leg basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Jada and I actually do, well, we used to do these weekly sensual embodiment classes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I looked forward to every Thursday night with Nettie. Shout out to Nettie. I still love these classes so much because it was the permission slip for me to practice not only being in my body, but get in touch with my sensuality, which is really
Mm-hmm.
about expanding our awareness of the senses that we have. And I remember when I first did that class, how in my head I was. And it took at least two
Mm-hmm.
years for me to finally recognize, like, oh, wait, I have the rest of my body. And I love how it's not even about choreography, but truly about tuning into our senses. And you and I both had the story that, oh, we're not dancers. I didn't grow up taking
Mm-hmm.
classes. I didn't even do Thai dancing, none of that. I just told myself the story that I'm not a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've loved witnessing your growth and my growth. Uh, but something that I have been reflecting on so much is on the suppression of us being in our bodies as Thai women.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to give one example that I've been experiencing with the woman in my family, primarily my mom and my sister. I love the Korean spa. I remember the first time I went,
Mm-hmm.
the first time I went, I was like, oh my God, I have to be naked. I don't want to do this. No, people are going to look at me funny. And then when I realized
Mm-hmm.
nobody cares, it's just, it's become a safe haven for me. And I've been trying to convince my mom and my sister to come, but
Mm-hmm.
they also have those stories of like, oh, people are going to look at me funny. I don't want people to see my body. And I didn't realize how deep the shame
Yep.
was. And I feel like a
Yep.
lot of that is influenced by not only the patriarchy, but our
Mm-hmm.
upbringings as Buddhists and the ways that we have
Mm-hmm.
been taught, especially as a woman, to be modest, to cover up, or else we're the ones that are going to be responsible for the temptation um of men. It's
Yep.
and so curious your reflections on
Oh my God.
that.
That's such a big question. Holy crap. Yes, all of it. I think about that a lot. Um, my mom is
What's it like with
similar
you?
about the type.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
My mom
curious.
was
Like, what's
similar.
it like with you
I
and your
told my
mom?
mom, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was same. I told my mom I was going to Thai spa. I invited her along, but then I told her you have to be naked, and she was like, "Oh no, no, no. There's no way. Like, there's not even. There's not. No way. No way. Why would you know?" I don't know if some people know this, but a very small. Like, okay, when it comes to Thailand and Thai culture, because of the way that Westerners describe Thailand and show up there, they actually see Thailand as a very sexualized place. I don't, you watch movies like The Hangover, you watch a ton of like YouTube videos, you'll come across people always highlighting the red light districts of Thailand, always highlighting like quote unquote lady boys, which is a derogatory term, by the way, and just talking about Thailand as yes, beautiful temples, blah, 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 but somehow the sex tourism is also always highlighted. And what people don't often don't realize is how conservative Thai culture is. And as you mentioned, it's patriarchal in a lot of ways. And it's also Buddhist. So like conservatism within Thai men as well, right? And so that definitely shows up in my family. Always like the idea of being a proper girl, sitting properly, talking in a proper way, right? Not You're not supposed to like be noticeable. You're not really supposed to like stand out. And that means just general lack of expression. And so how are you ever actually going to learn how to express your sexuality when you want to on your own terms? And so that's been a huge like learning process for me of like, yeah, to an extent, I'm not really like super out there. Even as a sex educator, I'm not in lingerie all the time and like super, like I don't, if you look at my Instagram, I'm not like sexy, like in my Instagram, at least not by like typical I don't know, standards. All the power to the people
Wait,
that are.
yeah,
I'm not like in
and
whips and chains and lingerie. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, that's on Thursday nights we can be, but
yeah, oh yeah, we are.
if y'all have not seen Jayda's Instagram, I love showing your page to people because I mean, first of all, you are totally fine. And yet here you are doing a photo shoot at the Asian grocery store with these big glasses and your auntie jacket and like the woven basket holding
Yeah.
like a bitter melon in one hand. I'm just
Yes.
like,
And like
yes,
a
that is the
dildo and the
auntie,
other. Yeah.
right? Yeah, and a dildo in the other. That's the auntie that we all
Yeah.
need. And I remember that was the photo that you used to call in people for your very first
Hmm.
program, which was soup for the sensual soul.
Hmm.
Man,
Hmm.
remember those days?
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Feels like forever ago. Yeah, there's something about that. Like I want to I've always wanted to find ways to help us express our sensuality in on our own terms, where it didn't necessarily have to look overtly sexual if it didn't want to, but it could if you wanted to, right? And all it is like what feels good for you. And that's just not even a question that we're asked within our culture, within a Thai Buddhist upbringing. If anything, Buddhism tells us that your desires are not healthy, that you shouldn't
Yeah.
actually want things. So when you like sexuality and desire go hand in hand when we talk about it a lot of times, when we language sexuality, it's like, what are you craving? What are you know, like yearning for? What are you desiring for yourself? And usually it's pleasure. So being sex positive is pleasure based. But when you look at Buddhism's teachings, they're all about restriction. They're all about avoiding temptations, not letting your desires control you, right? And so I sit at this intersection a lot of times of like, can I be a Buddhist and also a hedonist? Like, is there a way for me to do both? Because I would like to. I'd like to be a mindful, practicing Buddhist while also acknowledging that like we deserve so much pleasure in our lifetime. And so I don't really have a lot of answers for that, but that's kind of like I'm like, can we do that? Can we find a way to do it all?
Yeah. And I feel like oftentimes the answers are in the questions that we're asking. And you and I don't read or write Thai. And
No.
I love how we're both just like following the same accounts of like trying to learn these different Thai words. My challenge is that every time I go back to the motherland, I'm still seen as American, but here I feel like I'm
Hmm.
not American enough. Every time people ask me, where is it that I'm from? Where is it that you're really from? What kind of brown are
Hmm.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then one of the other questions that I didn't know how to answer growing up, and especially in my adult years, is whenever people would ask me what kind of Buddhist I am, because I was just like,
Mm.
Buddhism is Buddhism. But as many of you know, I just came back from this Buddhism and ayahuasca retreat, and I was without my phone for nearly 2 months. And in that time, I started finding answers to those questions. Like, how do I respond when people ask what kind of Buddhism I practice? And so I learned that there's mainly two branches. There's the Theravada Buddhism and there's the Mahayana. And growing up uh, as Thai Americans or in the Thai diaspora, we are raised in this culture of Theravada Buddhism, which sees Buddha Gautama as the ultimate teacher. And our goal is to enter enlightenment, where
Mm-hmm.
suffering ceases to exist, where desires and pleasures and these feelings are actually a distraction. It's just a part of the human condition. Life is suffering. And so if we want to transcend that, meditate. But then the
Mm-hmm.
ways that that manifests in our culture, and especially with the woman in our lineage, is
Mm-hmm.
seeing feelings like rage, grief, sadness
Mm-hmm.
as the emotions that are taking us away from nirvana, from liberation, from the dharma. When now that I'm older, I'm like, wait a minute,
Mm.
you mean that in order for me to reach enlightenment, you're asking me to dissociate?
Yes. Ooh. Ooh. Let that just sit for a second. That's
Mhm.
huge. That's huge.
And so, right? And so learning more about Mahayana Buddhism is recognizing that there's more than just one Buddha, not just Buddha Gautama. There was many before him and there was many afterward. And one of the deities that I'm constantly invoking is Green Tara. And all of
Mm.
these female bodhisattvas that I have been coming across, from Green Tara,
Mm.
Saraswati, Ichel, Yamaya. They may not identify as Buddhist. Buddhist literally just means enlightened one. Bodhisattva, if you're not familiar with the term bodhisattva, it is choosing to put others before oneself, but also not doing it in a way that martyrs our own needs for the sake of others. Um, we'll go deeper into that. I'm going to bring another guest where we'll go into that. But why am I mentioning all of this? All of these female bodhisattvas, when I look at them, they got their tits hanging out. They
Yep.
are sexy. They are
Mm.
just in their power and in their body. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
How come I never saw a woman on any of the Buddhist altars growing up?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so in that particular sect, which I feel like you and I have naturally stepped into without even knowing that there was a particular sect of this, is using the feelings as a way to reach liberation.
Yeah. Yep. I will push back a little bit on the like, actually not even push back, but you just made me think of like the imagery of a lot within our temples. If you look at the older imagery of women in Buddhism, yes, they're like topless, right?
Mhm.
And we see that across cultures of like nudity does not equal sexuality.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so my quote unquote pushback would be like, they look sexy through our Western eyes because
Yeah.
we think that that's embodied sexuality, but they
Yeah.
just existed because their
Mm.
tits just exist. And that's the level of like I'm trying to be at, is like if I'm nude, naked, seen in the world, that's just my body. That's literally the body that I was born with.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, it's not automatically something sexual
And I think
until
that
I say it
speaks
is.
to, right? And that speaks to the ways that we have been colonized, even though
Yes.
Thailand is a nation that has never been technically colonized,
Mm-hmm.
the ways that it shows up in our mind is still the same. And
Mm-hmm.
growing up in
Mm-hmm.
America, especially. So it's like, where did we lose those teachings along the way? Where did we think that it was actually shameful to show our skin, or
Yes.
that us showing more skin is equated to sensuality, which then exotifies those of us that feel more comfortable not having to cover up as much.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. And this is why we need more Buddhist monks that are women. I don't know if that's why. I don't know if that's the answer. But that's kind of going back to like, why didn't we grow up seeing these femme or like female identified or even the queer guides, right?
Yeah.
Within our Buddhism. Why was that not talked about? Why isn't mostly men? Why is it that in Thailand, in order to become an ordained monk, only men are allowed?
Yeah.
Like I ask those questions constantly.
Mhm.
Why is it that if we're so enlightened, if we're so enlightened and working towards enlightenment, I don't understand why our guides only have to be men.
Well, and then I feel like because we are asking these questions, the answers are beginning to reveal themselves. For example, I was in Joshua Tree and
Mm,
I found this temple that is run by by it's not even nuns, it's Buddhist monks that are women, which is called bhikkhunis, I
mm-hmm.
believe.
Bhikkhunis, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's a lost lineage of
Yep.
woman that derive from one of Buddha Gautama's first female students, who I'm going to have to find her name, but there's so many of these teachings that have been lost, and I feel like that's why I talk about how we are the reincarnated ancestors, like
Yeah.
questioning why is it that I'm so different? Why is it that
Mm-hmm.
I um yeah, I just want to create a different story for my lineage when really I feel like it's a remembrance. So what are the ways that you have been experiencing healing between you and your matriarchal lineage or your mother as you have said yes to this path?
As I've said yes to my path of liberation, particularly liberation around my body and liberation around my sexuality and sensuality, it's being able to hold a lot more compassion for my mom and a lot more understanding as to why she treated me the way she did when I was growing up. I was her only daughter. She had standards as well as fears around me growing up. She was very protective, overprotective in my eyes. But to her, she's like, you are a girl in this world. You need to cover up because of that. You need to move in a certain way to not bring attention, right? You're not allowed to stay out past a certain time. You're not, not allowed to have a boyfriend. Like things like that that seem very typical, but I understand that it was her anxiety and maybe her past experiences growing up as a young woman, young Asian woman, that told her this is a scary place for young girls. And it is. And my childhood also speaks to that experience of like it is a very scary place to be in this particular body. And as I've had to learn how to like remember that my body is mine, remember that I have agency over my body, remember that my body can be shared with my consent, and that there are things that the ways that I can move in the world as a sexually expressive person without bringing on pain and trauma and hurt. It allows me to see her in her fullness. It allows me to have compassion for the decisions that she made as a mom, right? And a lot of healing for my aunts too, and the things that they had to experience growing up, and now I really look at my younger cousins, my younger like female cousins, and the journey that they're on, and just wishing that, hoping that I can embody that like safe space for them if they ever needed it. And just yeah, continuing that. I'm one small little person in the world, um, and wanting to just affect change within my circle, within my family, within my chosen family. Um, yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah, and I feel like my business and this just my business really has been the invitation for me to look even deeper into my childhood and my ancestral wounds that
Mm,
I am still healing from. And I say the word healing not in the context of there's something wrong with me and I need to be fixed, but where what areas of my own life and in my lineage have I experienced the denial of my own desires and my pleasure?
mm,
And is it
mm-hmm.
selfish? Is it selfish of me to say yes to that? And I didn't realize it until I came back from this sabbatical, the ways that grief has just been accepted as the norm when really it's like, wow, I mean, putting my own family on blast, like, mom, you could have made a different choice. But if
Mm,
this is what you choose, then I'm like, I want to see you as my teacher. And in this moment, like, I'm going to have to learn how to mother myself and not settle for a relationship that makes me feel any less than, that denies me of my pleasure and my joy.
mm,
So
mm-hmm.
I wanted to dig into one other topic, which
Yeah.
we might not be able to go as deep into, but speaking of relationships,
Yes.
one of the posts that you created that went the most viral was
Mm-hmm.
on solo polyamory.
Yes.
And I know that my great grandfather had multiple wives, and my grandfather was the first to just have one.
Mm.
And and
I love
also,
this. I love hearing
oh
about
my
people's
God.
families and like non-monogamy. Oh, I love it. Okay, say more.
Um, and also I need to thank you because when I was going through my separation, um, one of the challenges you gave to me was to like practice going to a bar or a restaurant by myself, which I had never done until I was in South America traveling by myself without my phone.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and
You
you're the
would,
first
that
person
was like
that
the extreme end. I love it. The universe is like, yep, this is time, June.
I know. I'm like, damn, I can't
Yeah.
just like look down on my phone so that no one could talk to me. But I ended up
Yep.
meeting the most incredible people ever. And
Hmm.
I am healing from my codependent anxious attachment wounds. And thanks to you, I'm exploring what it's like to date myself and also to just not attach myself to any labels or feel um, like I need to have a status or ownership over someone else or vice versa.
Yeah.
So, for people who are new to solo polyamory, how is it that you would define it?
Yeah. There's a lot of different definitions, like working definitions within the polyamory and non-monogamy community. Um, for me, solo polyamory is a practice of relating in which I center myself and my desires and my needs, not necessarily over anyone else, but in the way that I love. And this, so polyamory, if you just kind of do a little breakdown of the language, polyamory itself is usually, it means many loves. Poly means many, amory loves. So it's the ability to love multiple people, which all of us actually in some way love multiple people, hopefully. Whether that's romantic or friendships or platonic and all these different ways. So that means many loves. When you put solo in front of it, what it tends to mean is that solo polyamorous people are not trying to attach themselves to another like to be in a couple, if you will. So even within polyamory, a lot of polyamorous people are actively looking for partnership. Maybe it's multiple partnerships at the same time, but they're actively seeking partnership. For me, my practice in solo polyamory is that I'm not oriented towards seeking any type of particular partnership, and that my main partnership is with myself. That my number one primary, like if I can marry myself type of thing that you always hear about, is going to be me. And that all of the relationships that exist around me are secondary and supportive to me. That sounds very philosophical and all that, but yeah, it's essentially kind of like being able to have multiple relationships, but anchored and oriented in myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and you are also the first person I feel I met who was all like, I actually don't want to get married and I don't want to have
Yeah.
children, which is such a bold decision to make, especially when I know for myself, my parents see marriage and children into the house and the 401k as the ultimate success, the ultimate standard of success and the pillar of what it looks like to achieve the American dream.
Ooh. Yes.
And also, I feel like with the past lovers I've experienced, I'm like, maybe I have been somewhat practicing solo polyamory without even realizing it. I don't know, because I feel like for you to even name that as a choice in the ways that you choose to navigate relationships can be perceived as being incredibly selfish. Like, how dare you
Oh
choose
yeah,
you? So how is it
absolutely.
that you navigate that, especially when you are in when you are navigating multiple intimate
Yeah.
relationships?
Yeah. I I think about that a lot in terms of like I wonder if people look at the way that I'm moving in the world and see it as very selfish and see
Yeah.
it as like, oh, she wants her independence and she also wants all these people to love and adore her, which admittedly I do. Like I think that's it. It's like, and yeah, like I've learned. I think I had some self-consciousness about it in the beginning as I was first even learning about solo poly. So before I even identified as solo poly, I knew I didn't want children. I knew I didn't want to get married. I also, even in my most loving partnerships or like people I saw a future with, I didn't really want to live with them. Like I never desired to share my space with someone that closely or enmesh my life the way that a lot of other people desire. So that's a big, some people really love that. Some people thrive in those type of dynamics. I just know myself and have done enough reflection and dating to know that those are not things that I desire. And so when I began claiming my solo polyamness, it was really a way for me to honor the fact that I have a lot of love to give. I love, I do love, I wrote a book about love, and for a long time, because of my independency, I actually thought I was not a romantic person. And because of the ways of like, oh, I don't want to get married and I don't really want to live with someone, I had a lot of people who kind of gave me that messaging of like, oh, Jada's just like not into commitment. She's
Yeah.
just, she doesn't want to settle down. And it made the equivalent of that was like, you're not that romantic. And I had to do a lot of healing around it. I was like, actually, but for some reason, I love this person and I also love this. And even in my most brief encounters, there's like a lot of genuine love there. And I was like, no, I actually really love love. I'm a big fan. I'm a big proponent. I think we should fall in love all the time. Um,
Mhm.
and how do we fall in love without losing ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's the piece around the solo poly kind of like um I guess like values is that I need to maintain my relationship with myself so that I don't fall into a codependent pattern. And sometimes you will, regardless, because we're human. But that was for me like, okay, I want to practice the solo poly way of relating because I want to honor that I have these loving, beautiful relationships that I do want to nourish, but I can't do it to a point where I lose me. and I lose my identity and I lose my autonomy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
how do you do that? Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was just saying, how do
No, I
you
was
do
like,
that in a way that also is mindful of these other people in our hemisphere? Because if we are choosing love, then we're also choosing to do no harm, or at least doing our best to not inflict further harm, and also discerning, okay, what is our shit to hold on to? What when do we be accountable for when we have created those harms? And then when do we
hmm
recognize, like, actually that's your stuff?
hmm that's the practice, girl. That's really the practice. Like, one, I have given up on the idea that I'm not going to cause any harm. Like,
Mm,
it's just not a
yeah.
way of. I've done that for so much in my life. I think because I had been harmed so many times, there was a
Yeah.
point in time where I started operating from like, I don't want to cause anyone the same amount of pain that I've ever been in. I want to, I never want to hurt someone like this. And what that meant is that I was then, it led for the potential of triggering other trauma responses of me fawning, me wanting to like
Mm.
tear, so, you know what I mean? Of like, whatever it is that needs to make you happy because I don't want to hurt you. Yeah, I know your face right now. Yeah. So we can't do that.
So,
So I gave up on the idea that I'm never going to cause any harm. And instead,
mm,
going back to what you just said, is now I got to learn if when I do cause harm, how can I take accountability for it? Right? What is it? And honestly, like when it comes to accountability, accountability only really matters if you actually want to continue a relationship with that person.
that part.
If
Yeah.
I don't want to, if we don't want to continue a relationship, there's not really an accountability that is required to happen because for what? And so for me, if I know in my heart that I still want this person in my life, that I still want to be in relationship with them, then I'm going to step up to take accountability for the parts that I can take accountability for, and hopefully vice versa. And then that I'm met with that same energy. Yeah, but it takes so much self-awareness, takes a lot of work, takes a lot. It's not easy. It's not easy to do this. It's not easy to move in this way. And so as selfish and like idealistic as it might seem, the way I talk about it,
Yeah.
it is really hard. And I will never downplay the challenge of that.
Because I feel like polyamory has been such a trending topic as well. I
Yeah.
tend to see it more from men though, who I'm just all like, I don't know if you actively want to practice polyamory or if you just have commitment issues.
Fair. As a Sagittarius, that is that's the stereotype. That's the stereotype is that Sagittarius have a fear of commitment. And I've had to unlearn that. I was like, no, Arash, I don't think I have a problem with commitment. I've never had a problem with monogamy necessarily before, like in terms of getting into monogamous relationships. Um, it was more that I was falling into those relationships by default because I didn't know that we could relate in other ways, right?
Mm,
And monogamy ended up being like just not the best relationship structure for me because I would lose myself within those partnerships because I would sacrifice more of myself in order to keep that other person happy. And so it just didn't work for me. And I got to a point where I would rather be selfishly loving. Right? I can be
mm,
selfish and I can love. Those are not mutually exclusive things. And I think that's
yeah.
something we talk about all the time, right? You say this all the time, like you have to pour into your own cup in order for it to overflow, right, to other people. And so that for me is my solo poly kind of journey is like the acknowledgement that I need to love myself, care for myself as much as I do for others. Yeah.
And the medicine that I received from my sabbatical was not only should we be pouring from our overflow, but we also need space to deepen our well. And that's where the
Oof.
stillness comes in, because otherwise we're just going to be pouring from a shallow cup. And
hmm
medicine can be
hmm
very bitter sometimes. And so, what are the ways that we're actually making space to dig deep into those depths so that when we're pouring, we're not just constantly operating from this place of service, but like, hey, I've done the work to ensure that the water within this well is not stagnant, that I'm learning how to pour into myself and to hold the depths of emotions, especially as highly sensitive beings that are just feeling everything around us. And so I give you props for being open to um receiving support and exploring what it's like to be in relationship with multiple bodies. And I also feel like we have a lot of unlearning to do on what intimacy gets to be, not just
Yeah.
with one partner, because I mean, I'm so new to this, but I'm also thinking about like the friends that I feel like right now in this time of my life, I'm having so much fun dating my friends, dating my
Yeah.
girlfriends. It's platonic, but like, wow, this is the depth of relationships I've been missing out on.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of it. That's actually a big part of the polyam journey for a lot of people, is realizing how much we've been taught that romantic relationships should be put above all other relationships that we have. That like we're supposed to seek romantic relationships because they're supposed to be the most fulfilling, when in actuality the people that have held it down for us the longest in our lives oftentimes are our platonic friendships,
Oh,
our like childhood
yes.
friendships that we've been friends with
Yeah.
for like 10, 15 years. They're the ones that have seen me through my darkest moments, right?
Yeah.
Have been the ones that picked me up from my breakups from romantic
Mhm.
partners. And so, if anything, to be quite honest, I know a lot of people don't. I say that I don't have a hierarchy over my relationships either, of like my romantic ones are not more important than my platonic or my familial ones. But I'm kind of moving towards like, actually, I want my friendships to be on top. Like, I actually want friendship to be above romantic relationships, or
Mm.
just like even within a romantic relationship, can our friendship dynamic be stronger than our sexual one? Can our friendship dynamic be stronger than our romantic, intimate, whatever one, right? Like, I want friendship above all else, to be quite honest. And if
Yeah.
we happen to have sexual experiences alongside that, great, but I'd rather focus on the friendship piece. But yeah, I think practicing this is just a way of
Mm.
shifting how we relate with other people.
Yeah, I had this big fear of being alone as an old woman in like the middle of the forest, being surrounded by cats and talking to trees. And here I am right now.
Oh, that sounds great, June. What? That sounds like the dream.
And I had no idea. And I thought about you so much when I was by myself, especially when I was in this jungle home by myself, surrounded by these animals, even here. And so,
Yeah.
background on this home I'm in, the owner of this farm, Montez, badass 60-year-old queer Black woman who is in this moment single as well. And she's traveling the world right now. And she's like, come and farm sit. And I was scared shitless because I've never been on a farm, let alone owned an animal. And here I am, like just being cuddled by these 2 dogs, 5 cats, 5 chickens, and 9 goats.
That's the
And
dream.
it is the absolute dream. And for me, it just makes me look forward to being an elder. I've been surrounding myself with a lot of elders lately, and
Yeah.
and another one of my friends who's an elder just bought a home with her best friend.
Oh,
What?
yes. Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah. And so
That
I
makes me
just love, right? Like we are truly embodying these badass Asian aunties, these elders that I know I didn't see many reflections of growing up.
hmm
And we're the ones that we've been praying for. So I want to know, through these transitions that are taking place in your life, what is it that you are currently doing to stay grounded? And then what is it that you're learning to release?
Mm. I think with everything that's happened and everything that continues to happen in the world, what's keeping me grounded is me knowing that I am loved. And I constantly have to remind myself, not have to remind myself, but I try and like be deliberate in reminding myself, I am very loved. I'm very loved. And that is all that actually matters at the end of my life. So
Mm.
if I were to go tomorrow, if I didn't get to live out the rest of my dreams, I am so loved. And that's kept me going, honestly. Like it's as simple as that. I think in attempting to release, I think it's just releasing any expectations right now that if things are gonna go my way. To be
Right?
perfectly honest, like I'm at that, like
Yeah.
it's just not gonna. It's not. I'm loved, and nothing is gonna go my way, and just sitting in that acceptance.
Ancestors, I surrender. I
Yes,
understand the
exactly.
assignment. You don't want me to
That's it.
have one. You already have something planned for me.
That's it.
Speaking of
That's
love,
it. Yes.
speaking of love, I would love to hear the wisdom from younger Jayda and her lessons
Mm.
on love that she can impart onto us.
Oh my gosh, younger Jada.
Yeah, let's let's hear an excerpt from the
Yeah.
book.
Ooh. Yeah. We can do. Oh my gosh. Which one do we want to do? So if we're channeling younger Jada, I have one. If we're channeling older, 30s Jada, I have that one too.
Yes. Let's hear the accuracy.
Okay. So this one's for younger Jada. Yes. Okay. I want to preface this one by the reason why this relates to younger Jada is because I, as a darker skinned Thai woman, was told all the time that I need to stay away from the sun. I'm sure you heard that growing up too, as a
Oh yeah, a
brown
couple
girl.
times.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
like
a
every
couple
day of
times,
my
right?
life.
My mom would buy me tamarind soap to lighten my skin
Yeah.
because, yeah, darker skin was not desirable. Being in the sun, like when we'd walk down the street, like stay in the shade, right? Or cover up. So I wrote this as a love letter to the sun. The sun has always loved me, but before I could begin to understand the ways she shared her warmth with me, I was told not to love her back, told she was dangerous, told to never let her see me, told to hide from her affection, denied her existence as my guardian because the women in my lineage were told to erase their color, color that was too vibrant, too honest for the world to handle. So I had to wash away the gold imprinted in my skin as if she tainted it each time she kissed my forehead. I no longer hide from her. I seek her every morning, waiting for her to glance through my window, whisper hello, and remind me that we were made for each other.
Hmm. You know,
I know.
my graffiti name. Yeah, when I thought I was gonna like
Oh, you're
oh
tell me, please tell me.
it was the Siamese meerkat because meerkats are sun worshippers. Mhm. I
Oh
think
my
that's gonna be my
God, I love that.
I know. I think
Wow.
that's I actually is probably gonna be my playa name when I go back to Burning Man.
So fucking hippie of you right
So
now.
look, going out there to
I love
decolonize
it.
the playa. No,
Uh-huh,
but no.
uh-huh. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you. Thank you
I
so
love
much.
that. Of course, of
Yeah,
course.
you know what?
Yes.
Let's hear one more, if that's okay,
Yeah.
because I'm your words are
Yeah,
such medicine.
sure. So this one, yeah, you don't need to give context for this one. Dear lover, I hope you never need me. I hope your life is so filled with other people who love you that you will never need my presence and you choose to keep me anyway. Because I want you to choose me consciously, intentionally, or because it just makes sense for the time being, even if it doesn't mean forever. After all, time is socially constructed, and you and I are constructs of love. And please don't ever be loyal to me, because what is loyalty but another way to say obedient? And my love, I do not own you. Instead, go dancing without me. Go see the world without me. Go to bed without me. Come back to me and tell me every person you met, every place you saw, and everything you dreamt of. Dear lover, if you ever meet another who can love you as deeply as I do, let them love you. Because if that's possible, well, they must love you a lot. And you should surround yourself with it, because that's the only thing that will get us through this lifetime. Fill your entire love, fill your entire life with love so it spills over its edges and flows onto me.
Oh my gosh. Like, oh my Buddha, Jayda, can you marry me?
Yes.
Oh my God. If I could have a lover share those very words with me. Yes, 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 yes. I'm feeling so expansive in my body, knowing that that kind of care and unconditional love is possible. It exists. And
Mm,
because you wrote those words down, it is an incantation that it's available to all of
mm.
us. But the invitation is, how is it that we can practice loving in such a way that those we love feel free? Shout out to Thich Nhat Hanh.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Definitely definitely an inspiration for this entire book. One of my many
Wow.
inspirations. Hmm.
Yeah, the first Buddhist monk that ever talked about engaged Buddhism, saying that as Buddhists, for us to choose silence is choosing oppression. And so
Hmm.
let us write these words, let us cast these spells, let us show up as these badass ancestors in the making and shift the
Hmm.
story for our future lineage. So I have one final question. If
Okay.
you could speak to yourself as a future ancestor, badass, sex positive Asian auntie who has now
Mm,
returned to Earth and Stardust, looking back on present day Jayda, what is
mm.
it that auntie would say?
Oof. What would Auntie say? I think she would say, you already know your path and you're going in the right direction. You just have to keep going. Like, you just have to do it. Just keep choosing to do it every day. You're already on the right path. Yeah.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah. And just a hit that I got from Asian auntie, maybe it's the auntie in me.
Hmm.
The elder in me is just like, hey, practice surrendering, keep
Mm.
practicing, because what is meant for you will find you. You don't have to chase, you don't have to force.
Hmm.
And you were actually one of the first examples of what that looked like, just in the not forcing yourself to show up and to allow yourself to be in the stillness and to honor that. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're the one that said to me, like, you wrote this and you shared it on your story, some seeds can only be scorched by fire.
Hmm.
And um to honor tending to our inner seeds and the flames within that have been suppressed throughout
Yeah.
so much of our lineage. And so thank you, Jayda, for being
Mm.
that fire for me, for
I'm
so
honored.
many of us. And where is it that people can go and find you?
So you can find me on my website, auntiejayda.com, AUNTIEJAYDA. I'm also on Instagram, JAYDA_kissed, KISSED. And yeah, that's the two main places that I'm at right now, for now.
Mm. I love you so, so, so much. I'm so thankful that our ancestors brought us together. And even if we aren't able to be in Thailand, I feel
Cry.
like I know we are learning how to bring you're going to be there. But I feel like one of the major lessons that I'm coming back to over and over again is learning how to bring the motherland with us wherever it is
Yeah.
we go. And just,
I feel that.
yeah, when we say yes to our pleasure, our desires, our sensuality, what it is that lights us up, that is also us learning how to reconnect with our ancestors. And so thank you for your work, Auntie Jayda. And I cannot wait to grow old with you and look back on all
On
the
our
stories
farm?
that we get to tell on a farm right here.
On our
Right
farm.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Absolutely.
not sure about making our parents proud, but definitely making our ancestors proud.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm okay with that.